Alright, what is going on, my broskiis? My name is Toadski, back again, here to bring you guys yet another One Piece Treasure Cruise video. So we do have Treasure Map coming up very soon, which is starting on the 15th of October, which is Wednesday at 5 p.m? 5 a.m? 4 a.m? One of those two. It's early as shit, man. I think it's 5 a.m. PST time on Wednesday morning. Obviously, scale that depending on where you are. So we are here to give you guys a preparation video. The last couple of TMs, I haven't done prep videos because it's been so hard to build teams for quote-unquote accessible teams, I guess is what I should be saying. Accessible teams have not been readily available, but this time around, yeah, it is kind of tricky to get things sorted, but because it is a super sugo-fest and the fact that there has been so many parts, what I've done for the teams here today is I have built the teams without having the most recent batch. So we're talking about Walkuri, Mars, and their rare recruits. So the teams you'll see do not have those ones. They will feature the characters from part 2 and from part 1 of this major super sugo-fest celebration. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into it. So you'll see here that the teams that we've built here are a little unfinished, and it's mainly just because I've given you guys the structure of how you should build your team, and then you can kind of build around that. So let's start off with over here with Mark 3 mini boss. Basically, you see Rainbow Shield and Barrier. So just use a defense piercing captain. So Carrot, Cat Viper, Dog Storm, whatever it may be. Just use it to bypass this, and then there's nothing else. So yeah, it's very, very easy. Just use Carrot, use something to just bypass the defensive effects with your normal attacks, and you're good to go. Let's move on. We have Atlas. So Atlas here, you'll see that there is 6 turns of attack down based on your chain. There is resilience, also very annoying, and there's an intimidate. So basically, if you activate any type of chain buff on the final stage, 2 turns of it are removed. So there are a lot of ways around that. This is just using the most accessible method, which is going to be using this new Kizaru. So this new Kizaru, when you use his special ability on stage 2, it will give you 3 turns of a chain buff, and then if you have 3 or more navy, you do all the other stuff. But he also says if you're below 50% or you have 2 or more navy characters, which you will with double Kizaru, locks orbs and also carries over a certain amount of chain from that turn into the next turn. I just yawned. I apologize. But what this means is on stage 2 you get this buff, right? And then when you perform your attacks to get rid of that stage, a fraction of that chain will be carried over, and because this lasts for 3 turns, it's fine. So use one Kizaru stage 2, use another Kizaru stage 3, because Kizaru also gets around resilience, and then you basically just build around that. What's his captain ability boost? It's all characters, so it actually doesn't matter what subs you have. I'll talk about subs towards the end of this video, really helpful subs that you want to keep in mind when you're building your teams. Let's move on to the next one, which is Sanji. Sanji is actually also pretty easy because you see that there is special bind, despair, and there is paralysis slots. So what they want you to do, if you just use the new 6+ that came out, the Nami and Usopp, use their switch effects to get around the despair, and then their special ability with alongside this Luffy, they just deal with everything. So you just have this as your core team, and then you can put 3 other units you want in here, and you should be fine. The Nami and Usopp should also provide you with conditional boost abilities, which allows you to get some damage output with them. I know that Luffy also removes some special bind. What else does he do? He does base attack boost. Whatever, bro. Is there any weakness class? There is weakness class for Cerebral, which I don't think is good because this guy is free spirit weakness class. Okay, so that's just kind of whatever. Either way, this core team deals with it. Franky is the most difficult of these mini map bosses. So you'll see that there's a lot of things going on. There is 1 turn of cooldown, but they also inflict you with paralysis. So really cool thing is you can have this Nami support attached to a straw hat or whatever. And this support says remove 1 turn of paralysis, and 1 turn of cooldown is given to all characters on the team. So that deals with this and 1 turn of this, so you just need 6 turns of paralysis, which you can get from the Crocodile special ability, so that's dope. Then we have 6 turns of attack down to deal with, which is why we have gone ahead and brought this guy. But you will see that we are also inflicted with stun, so our middle row is stunned, which is why we have this S-Hawk support on Stussy. You don't have to use this exact strat. There are a lot of other characters you could use in order to remove stun. You just need some type of effect that says, remove a certain amount of HP when you reach the final stage, or you can have a character in this position which says when you activate the special it cuts your health. Either of those would work fine, and then it will allow the middle row to be opened up, which allows you to use his special, and Urban special is the attack down remover. That's basically all it is. So we're just using this guy and then using cerebral or driven characters. Of course, we start as Zoro. We don't need to use Zoro's special. Zoro is driven, so he's still boosted by Crocodile here. So this works quite well, especially because the boss is quick and we have a lot of Dex characters on this team. So this team is very, very solid for getting through this fight without too many issues, of course. So if you don't have Stussy or this support or whatever, you just put a character in this position that has a health cut reducing special, and that's basically it. Okay, let's get into the nitty gritty, which is the final boss, which is versus Bonnie. So you see here that we are using a friend captain of Mars. We are featuring characters from this celebration. So we are building this team in a very specific way because we do want to fulfill the condition so that when we activate Peter's special, we get the overheal buff. And by getting the overheal buff, it does allow us to use the EX super of the rest of our 5 Elder characters. And it's very important that we get the EX super of Mars for the final stage. Now, one other thing to take note of is the whole chain debacle in this content. So you see on stage 2, so not even the final stage yet, there is a chain attack down, and they give you 7 turns of a really nasty chain buff. So if you are inflicted with this, you're going to have a really rough time. Of course, if you have double Mars, you can just use a Mars on this stage and then a Mars on the final stage. But if you don't have 2 Mars special abilities to use, you're in a bit of trouble. So what we're going to do is by using Izo and Okiku, we are going to use their special ability on stage 1. When we do that, we get 3 turns of a chain lock, which will carry into stage 2, which will stop this effect from being activated on our team. And because we have that ability, this chain attack down will be redundant. It won't be a problem. Another thing to note on this stage is there is a great barrier. That's not that crazy because you just tap 3 grades and you break it, because we're going to use Nusturo's special. Nusturo's special ability, incredibly strong. You get a ton of attack and all boost for himself, and you will also remove enemies' increased defense completely. So you are getting around the defensive effect. He's going to be hitting hard as hell, and you can also inflict set target status as well, so long as the support is not a side character. So make sure to do that, because you just get 1.75 times damage for free. So we're going to break the barrier first, and then after the barrier is broken, we can go ahead and kill with Nusturo. Very easy. When we reach the final stage, on the final stage versus Bonnie, there is block slots, there is chain down, more chain attack down, there is a special use limit, and there is a barrier. Okay, now there is an effect where if you use any type of chain effect, the enemy removes your beneficial effects, and there's also a slot down, which is just kind of annoying, but it is only a 50% reduction, which isn't going to be that bad if you have a really potent damage dealing team. So what we're doing here is we have Hound. Hound is here because his potential ability has the special use duration reduction effect. So with him on the team, it just removes this. The barrier is removed via the EX super of this guy. We have this guy for a huge orb boost, and then Pomsky is just kind of here for free. Like, it doesn't, you can replace this with whatever you want. He is not needed for this team. So Mars special is what you'd want to activate first, because we don't want this effect to activate to remove our beneficial buffs. So by using Mars, we get a full border matching slot. So this is going to be removed. We get a chain buff, and then his EX super removes this. So Mars single-handedly deals with everything. The only thing that we have to worry about is obviously this, which we do via the rare recruit, and then there's also slot attack down. So we need to do a ton of damage, and we do that via the special ability of Peter, which is a 5 times all boost, or give or take, which is a lot. And then the other characters on the team can just support that, you know, giving you other buffs. Remember that this is going to give us a lot of damage with his chain buffs. He does also give a conditional boost, but they will be removed because of this. So that is a little bit of a shame, but we will still have a huge orb boost from this, and then other effects from this will give you buffs. You can also use the EX super of Nusturo on the final stage to get an additional chain buff, which stacks with the chain boundary from Mars. So I feel confident that this team should be able to get the job done. So finally, let's have a look at the Luffy fight. So this is the Intrusion battle boss, which is the fight that you will likely encounter first in this treasure map. So on stage 2, there's a 70% health cut. Now, even though there's a lot of health cuts and there's a lot of death damage and stuff, I don't think it's going to be a major issue, because we're going to have a lot of HP. We are going to have so much goddamn HP because of these huge multipliers that these guys have in their captains, and because they are boosted characters, they get 2.5 times stats. So yeah, these guys are going to be tanky as hell. So you can see that there is a health cut, there is 2 turns of special reverse, which is obviously annoying, 10 turns of bind, which we are removing via Nusturo's captain. Remember, Nusturo's captain ability does remove 10 turns of bind, which is fantastic. Full board badly matching slots, those slots are also counted as non-matching for 5 turns, which sucks. and then there's normal attacks only and immunity. So the cooldown reduction is dealt with via the Carrot and Wanda special. They're so good. They just give you so much cooldown. So they give cooldown to, let's have a look at their special again. They give 3 turns of cooldown to Fighter, Slasher, Striker, Cerebral, and Powerhouse, which looking at this team is pretty much everybody. You're a shooter driven. Do you give it to shooter as well? Okay, so Urban is the only character that does not get that, which is fine because when we move into the final stage, he'll receive the cooldown anyway. But yeah, so he basically, Karen wanted to give cooldown to everybody, and then there's the bind, which we are dealing with. Now, the slots are an annoying thing that we do have to keep in mind, so we can get around that with the special abilities here of Hound and Urban. So of course, Urban won't have his cooldown on this stage, but we can use the Hound special ability, and Hound of course will change adjacent slots into recovery, which are going to be treated as matching for our team. So that's kind of like what we are kind of basing this whole squad around. So when we use Hound special, we're going to have 3 matching slots on this team, and then we're going to try and kill with that. When we move into the final stage here, there is more bind, which we're removing with our captain. There's burn, which we remove via the special, the EX super of Walkery. And then there is a territory, which is whatever. There is 10 turns of threshold, which is why we do need to use Peter on this team. Peter will obviously give us the threshold, but his special ability will also proc the EX super of the rest of the crew so that we can use this to remove the burn. And then there is also a death hit. Now, there is another death hit, which I am noticing. So technically speaking, what we could do is we could activate a support to give us damage reduction. So let's just have a brief look and see. I know that Mr. 3 is one that comes to mind straight away. Mr. 3 inflicts you with bind. Okay, that would activate on stage 2. This could actually be kind of good to get some more damage reduction. If you use a chainlock special, reduce despair and you get damage reduction. So this could potentially be good with Mars. We'll see. But something like that could work. Inflicts you with paralysis or special rewind. Yeah, this is good. This is a 75% damage reduction. So you could use that for like stage 2. That could be really, really good. And then if you use a special 30% damage reduction, so that could, this one could also work for stage 2. Yeah, and then like I think Mr. 3 is going to be very, very nice to have. I mean, this could technically work for this stage as well. We have this one, which is another Mr. 3, and then Hound. Use the special 25, so that could also work for stage 2. So lots of stuff for stage 3, but for stage 2, but stage 3 is a little tough. So I feel like the only ones you really have, you've got like this or this potentially could work really well, or this. Either way, something like that is probably like really, really optimal. I'll probably run something like this. We'll see. I haven't actually built my own teams yet, but I will be covering that in a separate post or a separate video. We'll see. So by having those damage reduction effects, it's kind of important because there is a death hit on stage 2 and on stage 3, and you want to try and get around that because there is going to be a significant health cut. But as I mentioned, because of the captains having so much HP and them being boosted in the content, I don't think the death hits are going to be as crazy as we're like kind of thinking it's going to be, right? There is an interrupt if you activate a damage reduction effect, removing your beneficial effects, blowing away characters, damage nullification. Obviously, that's really, really bad. One thing that I just remembered is that this guy's EX super also gives us damage reduction, right? Where is his EX super? Yeah, right here. So if we have overheal or a huge affinity buff, removes burn, 70% damage reduction. So yeah, I guess technically the damage reduction for stage 3 isn't a major issue, but as long as you have some kind of damage reduction for stage 2, I guess that's probably going to be okay. But the 70% damage reduction from this guy on the final stage, probably going to be okay. But that's it. That's the full breakdown of a quote-unquote accessible team. I know that it's still not necessarily accessible, but I would say, like, at least for the mini bosses, these ones are really easy to build for. The Franky one can be a little tricky for some. And then, you know, versus Bonnie and Luffy, if you have pulled on recent banners, it definitely helps. Now, it is annoying because versus Bonnie, because of the huge amount of defense, Nostro is so good for it. And then versus Luffy, the high amount of threshold, it makes Peter really, really good for that. So I guess if you have pulled one or the other of Peter or Nostro, it will make that particular fight much easier to deal with, but it is dependent on what's happening, especially because there is like the bind on the Luffy stage. So there's like 10 turns of bind here, and then there's a lot of bind here, which makes Nostro's captain very good versus Luffy, and then the defense removal very good versus Bonnie. So Nostro is carrying pretty hard, and then Peter obviously is triggering the EX super of all these guys as well. So yeah, it is dependent on what you have pulled in terms of how easy this TM is going to be, which goes without saying with basically every treasure map. Now, one thing that I need to tell you guys as well in regards to team building, at least for making these mini bosses much easier, is to utilize characters such as this. Now, there are other characters that I have not listed here, but these characters in particular, the reason why these characters are so good is because they help you with wave clearing these stages. So even though some of these characters are not boosted in the content, they make your life a hell of a lot easier. So Zoro, double special wave clear, double special wave clear. Brook is the most optimal one, of course, because he is actually boosted in every single treasure map. But of course, it depends on what cooldowns are available on each of the fights in regards to which ones you select for your team. Double special wave clear, double special wave clear. Of course, if you invest even more into these characters to give them more stats or give them really good supports, they will have more stats, which enables them to be used even easier. But these characters are so good for wave clearing the first 2 stages of mini boss fights, allowing you to reach the final stage faster, and then you can just deal with it and move on, because you don't need to really run high point boosters for these bosses. You want to stack all your points for the final bosses and get through the earlier fights super quickly. It's the most optimal way to play treasure map. Anyways, that's going to wrap it up for me though. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this one, and if you did, make sure to go ahead and leave a like. And if you want to stay up to date with all the content I post, including more One Piece Treasure Cruise content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. And that, guys, I'll see you guys within the next video.